All right. Mark Kratis, Matsko, and
You're not going to welcome the audience?
welcome to the Gary Hart fan club.
Yeah.
Oh, and Lasman had commented that he did not like Gary Hart Fan Club Nation.
No.
He says it should be Gary Hart Fan Club Family, and we're going to do like the great workers used to do. We're going to listen to the
We're
audience.
going to call it in the ring. That's what
We're
they're
going to
telling
call it in
us.
the
As
ring.
Terry Funk would say, that's what they're buying. So let's go with that.
So it's Gary Hart Fan Club Family, and that's all because of Lasman.
We unlike sports entertainers, we're going to listen to the crowd because we know you're there.
Where Lasman is family. He's not. He's not.
Just
He's
some
not.
guy.
He's not just the audience.
Just some guy.
But hey, we're gonna. So Gary Hart Fan Club Nation has been nixed. For everybody that doesn't know, I was trying to push that.
Nix.
Lasman said no. So.
Bo Nix.
So
Fans out there.
And Daniel Moore and Mark Cractus Matsko got last week's theme song. It was the theme song from Championship Sports, Channel 11, KTVT Wrestling Saturday Night theme. So yes, very good. Let's see. Question number one, Jeff Moore. What would have happened if the Von Erichs would have turned heel in the late '80s?
If you, I, I think the better question would be what if Dad would have turned babyface and started managing them in the late '80s, because we were almost to a point to where Dad was just had become a sentimental type thing to them. That way I could probably see something like that. But as far as turning them heel, I guess you could have. I mean, there was one match where they worked a tag team match when Jarrett was in here, and they had tried to change everything around, and Kerry and Kevin went out and worked with two underneath guys. And it's like, look at you, did they just turn heel out there? Took the two biggest stars we ever had and booked them in a tag match with two underneath guys, which makes no sense to me. But turning them heel, I don't think you could get the people to boo them regardless of what you would try to do, because a lot of that gets romanticized now because of what Hulk did 30 years ago to this month that they still haven't been able to follow. It could have done more harm than good, because if you force something and they don't want it, then they just won't. That's why people say, "Well, wrestling fans will buy anything." No, they won't, because if something's not good, they'll stop coming. But I don't think it would have. I don't think it would have helped. I think it would have been. It might have made things worse. But because you can always what if things. But to that, I don't think that would have been. I don't think Kerry would even know how to do that.
Yeah,
Kevin would know how to do it, but I don't think Kerry would have known how to do it, or would have been able to.
Yeah, I think if it was one of those things where, let's just say, corporate wrestling would have bought World Class, and they said, okay, hey, we want the Von Erichs to be heels. Yeah, it wouldn't have. The only way you could have kind of done it is the Von Erichs, said, still told their fans, kind of like how Brett did when he turned heel in '97. They were like, we still love our fans, but whoever they're working against, the Von Erichs were killed against them or something like that. I mean, to be honest answer, I think it would have killed it. I think it would have made things a lot worse if.
I can't imagine Kerry cutting a promo on how much he disliked the people of Texas. I can't
right.
imagine that.
Yeah, they just would have. It would have been bad, to be honest. If you want my honest opinion,
Kevin could have worked heel.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
His work was kind of heel anyway. But as far as him going out there and being in Dallas, no. Now he took him someplace else maybe, but in Dallas and Fort Worth, in Tech, there's no way. Now David, outside of Texas, could have. I mean, he did work heel in Florida and was tremendous.
Yeah,
but as far as here, no, that would not have worked.
The only thing I can think of is if there was some baby face that the people really did like, but this is just a scenario. Some baby face that the people really did like, but for some reason he just kind of rubbed Kevin the wrong way, and Kevin worked heel with this guy. Maybe that. But anyways, I always thought Lance Von Erich turning heel would have been something. I don't know. That would have been.
I actually think probably towards the end it was suggested to turn him heel and bring him back.
Yeah.
I think that was suggested, but that was long after Dad had left. By that point in time, Kerry was about to take off to go to New York, and I think Kev had lost interest anyway.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
And again, if you got questions, send them to us.
We got answers.
As we are running out of things to talk about. If you disagree with us, let us hear. Okay. Oh, and if you want to talk about Montreal Screwjob, Hulkamania. Brother, we dig talking
Because
about Hulk, brother.
because Dad was so intricate in both those things.
No, I'm just saying, like,
And
if
no
you
one's
want,
talked about Montreal.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
work.
all right. So Brandon Batchelor, great stories as always. I think your dad is remembered as a great booker,
Thank you.
which he was, but people forget he was an awesome promo since a lot of his stable didn't speak. What was one of your favorite promos of his? Some of his Kabuki's promos in George were legit scary as a kid. One of his funniest was on one of the late TBS studio shows when he called Dusty a juicy funky thing. Keep the legacy going. Some of my favorite promos of Dad was when he would like get confused or like he would mix up words. Like right when Kenji the Great Muda started, uh, I don't think anybody really knew what his real name was.
Jim Ross.
Jim Ross knew what it was because Dad was in like one of the first videos of. I know the question is like, what was one of Dad's best promos? But some of my favorites was like Dad, calling the Great Muda the Great Bota.
His original name was Sabu-san, the Dragon Master. That's the
Really,
name.
that's it.
I hatched that,
Oh, wow.
and then
Yeah,
it turned into Bota, Mota, and then Muta. But I guess
Mota.
it was like 1989. They were going with those Motley Crue type umlauts over the top. I think that would have worked.
Yeah, there was one. I don't know what show it was on, NWA Worldwide or something championship. I don't remember what it was, but Dad was trying to talk about Kevin Sullivan.
Yes, yeah. It was because he was talking about the Tower of Doom,
Mm.
and Dad went, "This shows you how long you've been in a program with somebody. Because sometimes if you've been in a program with a guy so long, it's automatic and second nature. So if you're cutting a promo and a guy's name comes out your mouth, you're just going to speak it like you would be saying sandwich." So Dad's out there talking about the Tower of Doom and how devious it is. He goes, "Kevin Von Sullivan has devised this type of match."
So that was funny. Yeah.
And then the next morning after that TV, we're walking out of a hotel room, and the Angel of Death, David Shelton and Brad Armstrong, they're both at the pool, and Dad's walking past the pool area, and Angel says to Dad, "Hey Gary, I'm a big fan of Kevin Von Sullivan," and Dad, because he's always been one of my favorites too.
Yeah, some of them, some interviews with Dad. I know. So the original question is like, what were some of the, best promos? But some of them, like I can tell, Dad was kind of shooting in a way.
Yeah, well, you kind of had to because I mean,
I think a couple of them with Jim Cornette. I think Dad was kind of shooting a little bit, like what Dad may have. No, I don't know. I just think Dad was kind of like. I think Jim Cornette kind of thinks he knows more than he does.
Dad loved Jimmy.
I know. Okay. All right.
And and Dad and me always had nothing but love and appreciation and respect for not only the knowledge but the unbridled passion and enthusiasm for Jim Cornette. I think he's and my Mount Rushmore wrestling, he's right there. I love Jim. Dad did too. I mean, he's Jim. He'll might not have been the toughest guy back there, but he would definitely let you know how he felt about things.
But yeah, great.
As far as promos, back then, we really didn't. YouTube has really helped perpetuate a lot of this stuff because we would do a TV promo, you just doing an interview just for the time to try to get people to come to the matches, whatever dates you were plugging at the time. And you had to make sure that you were also plugging the cities that you were going to be in and mention the cities because Barnett would always say, "Mention Columbus or they'll think you don't know." So that was the main premise of it. But now you go back and you look and say, "Boy, those are always pretty good." But Dad was just always like speaking jive and doing the dozens with whoever it was he was working with. But as far as the memorable promos, I had forgotten about a lot of them until I saw them on YouTube. But the ones with Fritz, he always liked having Uncle Mark with him, but he would always start, laughing hysterically at him and trying to keep a straight face. The one with Abby, he always liked doing those. Kabuki, if he really was into the program, like he was working with Dusty or Bruce or the Von Erichs or Bob Armstrong, or some of the ones he did with Piper were, brilliant. Wow. But you could tell by the way Dad was in the promo if he was really, really into the program. And like the ones he used to do with Moon and Uncle Timmy, Jim Brooks, he was really into those.
Yeah.
And when he did the ones with Murdoch, it was always if you could go back and forth, he always liked that too.
Free State Revolution. Question: at what point did you find out how the wrestlers your dad included got color, as they say? When you learned about the secret to purposely bleed, aside from the hard way? Were you surprised? Did your dad ever talk about that to you? I've always been fascinated by the fact wrestlers were so dedicated to their work they would use the blade to bring about the blood. Yeah, that is
Well, thank
nuts
you. I
when
mean,
you
because
think about it.
I mean that's why when people say the blood's fake, no, the blood's real. Well, how do you get it? Like this. But and people when people thought that it was fake blood, then say no, the blood's real. Well, how do they get it then? They're like, huh.
Yeah,
Then they really think you're nuts. As far as the blade, it was never really talked about, but I kind of knew how it was done. And then when he showed us how he did it, it was like, okay.
my first memory of dad bleeding was at the Mesquite Rotary Arena, and we were in the dressing room.
Yeah, it was with Fritz, wasn't it?
I don't
I think it was
remember.
yeah, Fritz had put the claw on it.
Yeah, and I remember.
He
Uh,
made it stop and he made it start again.
yeah, so we were sitting there, and Dad's head was bleeding. Then he'd stop it. Then he'd look at me and go like that, and it start bleeding again.
And then he'd stop it. And
Then
he
he'd
said, "Do it
stop it.
again."
Yeah, and I was just really confused.
I always kind of knew it's how they did it because I mean, because in some ways I thought, okay, well, it's a hard way, but you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, hard ways don't really go like that. It's more like it'll bleed, but it'll stop.
Yeah,
Or this will just pour because it's a gash.
yeah, to answer the question, I don't think Dad ever like smartened us up about like, hey, we. I don't
Yeah,
remember. Okay, I
yeah.
don't
I
remember.
mean, it was
I don't.
like
I don't remember Dad saying, hey, we cut our heads with razor blades, or I
yeah,
think we just kind of
well,
figured it
I
out.
remember he would speak about it. I mean, he would be like, says, "Well, my wife's complaining because I'm always gone all the time and eating at Waffle House 3 times a day and cutting my head with a razor blade." I
Yeah,
mean, I always knew it's. I pretty much figured it's how they did it, but once I saw for sure it's how they did it, it didn't change my opinion,
yeah. For
and
me,
it didn't shock me. I was like, okay, that's a lot easier than getting completely hard way to open. Now, sometimes when Uncle Mark would gig, he would go too deep sometimes, and you would have to sometimes go get stitched up.
mm-hmm.
I mean, he did that. That would happen to him. It would happen to Bruce. It happened to Flair a few times. One time, Rick was working with, I think it was Stan Hansen at the Omni, and Stan had, I think, the blade in his. For some reason, it got down to here, and he caught Rick with the that lariat clothesline. So Ricky's running around with a
Yeah,
gimmick stuck in his head for 45 minutes. He's continuing to pour, and the match is just starting.
yeah. As for me, I never remember Dad saying anything to me about it. I don't. I just. I don't really remember. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Because like always like, oh, why do they got the tape? Where do you think they're keeping that? I remember Hawk used to keep his like he
Yeah.
used to call it his Blazide aid, put it right there.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's what
Thanks for
really
the
made me
question.
nuts.
But yeah, I don't. I don't. I don't remember.
And what guys used to keep, it. Some guys used to keep it. Hogan used to keep it. He says he used to keep it there, but I think he used to keep it there. Flair had because I mean Rick was odd because Rick, what did Ricky never wear?
Tape.
Tape on his wrist. No, it was always on that
Oh.
little thing right there. And once you got a little bit older and knew what to look for, if you'd see, and Shawn Michaels became a master at this. He'd go on the floor sometimes, be like doing that, and then he'd pop back up. There was no blood. Then he'd go back down on the floor again. I looked at that. Dad goes, "See that? He's messing with the crowd. They don't know if he's doing it or not. So that you can play with him too."
Outlaw Ace. I was wondering if your dad knew Dingo Warrior / Ultimate Warrior,
Yes.
and if he did, what did your dad think of him?
Yes, Dad brought the Dingo Warrior / Ultimate Warrior Jim Hellwig into Dallas about 40 years ago last month. He was also supposed to bring Flash Steve Sting Borden in with him. There was a falling out between those two guys. Sting was trying to do the right thing and get his money, and he was going to come here and join Dingo, and Dingo became pretty much a fan favorite. And Dad said, "Go ahead and let's just let this happen." And Ding had said that. He was talking to a guy I know said Gary didn't try to ever hold me back. He heard that people were cheering me when he was out there with me, and he just let's let this thing happen. And he took off to the WWF and became the Ultimate Warrior and one of the guys that I think Dad and me were proudest of all of them. So yeah, we did know the Dingo / Ultimate Warrior, the late great Jim Hellwig, who has inspired me in a lot of ways.
And
that's for you, Dad.
And yeah, Dad liked him.
Yeah, a lot. And I heard from him about 2 or 3 years before he died. It was nice to hear from him because it was very, very heartfelt. I was glad to see that the love that Dad always had for him was reciprocated. So Jim Hellwig is fine in my book.
Twisted Steel Fight. Heard from him several times. What up?
What up?
I got a question. I know that Harley Race and Ric Flair both had to pay a $10,000 deposit on the NWA World Championship belt. My question is, what type of security did Race and Flair have if they were in a non-title match in Texas and the belt went to the back dressing area? Was the world title kept in an office with the promoter? Had a key to it? Was it placed in a safe? I'm going to say no.
No,
I'm going to say
as
it was
Jim
just laid on
Hellwood
a
would say,
chair in the dressing room.
as Jim Hellwood would say, whoever's bag it lay in, whoever was the champion carried the belt with him.
Yeah. So
And the secret was, if you didn't want to drop the belt, you didn't get the deposit back.
was it placed in a safe? How?
No, no.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, back then, I mean, guys had Rolexes, money clips, and you're gonna steal a belt. I mean, if there was no thieves, I mean, if there was a thief, if something was missing, somebody would jump up and say, "Gentlemen, there is a thief among us. This better be put back." And then if you were caught stealing, like another guy was, I'm not going to mention his name, but the story is well known. Like in 1991, stuff started missing out of guys' bags, and one of the guys, I'm not too sure who it was, but I have my thoughts, beat this guy half to death, and he was never seen again. So thievery was never anything that was ever tolerated. And that was in WCW, and I think everyone knows who I'm talking about. But I'm not sure who was the one who was the enforcer in that, and I don't think it was that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. Yeah, I think.
Nobody would mess with the belt, and a lot of guys didn't want the belt. You had to travel with it all the time. It meant no days off.
How was that 10,000 deposit investment secure so that no other wrestler or stray wrestler fan came in and stole it? I think.
No, it went to the alliance until you gave the belt back, until you dropped it.
Yeah, it looks like Chris Char responded and said that the deposit was held in the NWA account.
Yes, the alliance had it.
Yeah.
And whoever was the president at the time, through most of Flair's run, it was Bob Geigel.
So it looks like he's thinking like maybe every night that they put up an account. They put up 10,000.
No, it was the one-time deposit when you got the belt, and then you would get it back when you dropped it.
Yeah.
That's the way that worked. But nobody was going to make a move and try to take the. And
I think belts back then, like they weren't.
It wasn't looked at as a, Vince got to the point where, I want to make a belt so I can sell it at Toys R Us. Yeah, that's great. Carry a toy in my bag. But no, that wasn't. Nobody was going to make a move on the belt.
Okay.
Good question though.
Twisted Steel fight. Let's do a double from Twisted Steel fight. When your dad would go down to Houston and he would get into matches in quotation marks with Paul Bosch, how much did he really enjoy that, especially after all the controversy with the Dallas booking office taking over Houston instead of Paul inheriting it? So
he didn't. It was ridiculous stuff. Like I think there was a casket match, there was a bathtub match, there was a paint his head yellow match, other stuff like that. Dad and Paul, I can understand why Paul was upset with Dad, because he looked at him as the one guy that helped Fritz and the other cats take over the booking office from the Houston office and get control back to Dallas. But Paul was also allowed a lot of leeway because Houston was always a sellout. So, but Fritz got most of the money from the gate. But as far as, there was always tension between Dad and Paul. And a lot of times Dad felt that Paul was putting him in those kind of matches to try to make him look a bit of a fool. But, money can make you do a lot of things. It was never anything outlandish, but, you had to allow Paul, who was a great wrestling promoter, was probably the greatest wrestling promoter that there ever was, had one town, Houston, where a top guy, this is back in like 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. Ask Bruce Pritchard online, or Tom Pritchard. Hope they're watching. A top guy in Houston could make 70 grand a year just working Houston, or make more than that depending on how the business was. I mean, and that was back in those days. Imagine that now. That's a lot of money now. Yeah. Back then, for one place, one town.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dad, he didn't care much for doing that. He loved going to Houston because the money was always good. But as far as the silliness with Paul, because Paul was kind of like Vince McMahon in some ways. He was great promoter, but had a bent sometimes to do silly things. Like when Andre lost to Harley Race there, because Paul had leeway when it came to finishes, he had him trip over a pencil. And Paul said, how could something this big cause a man that size
this small
to lose his balance?
Yeah.
We'll be right back with the spoiler.
Right.
Great promoter, though. And after Gino's death, Dad and Paul mended whatever fences that there were. So they when Paul went to his grave in '88, Dad and Paul were very much simpatico.
Tony Pastor, did you guys ever see the 1974 storyline where your dad, Bob Roop, and the Mongolian Stomper jumped Bill Watts?
Yes.
I thought it was so well done. It
right
looked so real.
Crash. It was like right about a week before or the night before. Somewhere in there. This man named Watts, an island unto himself, is definitely out of commission for the night. Yeah, because Bill was about to sell his interest, or had sold his interest in Florida, and was coming back to Oklahoma, and had offered Dad the booking job out there. So Bill was going back to Florida, was going to leave Florida to go back to Oklahoma. And I think he was the Florida champion at the time, because Bill was not only the top heel next to Dad in Florida, but he was like the solo heel, sort of like how Steve Austin was, where he didn't have a bunch of guys with him. Dad had like 30 guys in the Gary Hart Army. Bill was the standalone heel to himself, and he was in a hot program with Jack Briscoe back then. I think they laid out either Bill and Jerry or Bill and Jack at the same time, because it was supposed to be before Bill was going to have the world title match with Jack later that night, and Bill juiced and laid on the floor and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty intense angle. Oh, where's David Crockett?
I think we've done this one before, but
this is one where they used to do 4 tapes, and by the fourth tape, nobody was there because it was 4 hours in.
Who knows this theme song?